Greetings, children of God. I am Nahabwe Charity Talent. And like we had been talking about the introduction of the health and temperance things that we are going to be looking at today, we are starting our first video. And if you remember well with me, the first letter was N, and that N represented nutrition. And so today we are going to learn about nutrition. You're going to learn about a lot of things. And so if someone asked you what nutrition is, I know we have a lot of ideas in our minds. But well, Google puts it that it is the taking in and use of food and other nourishing material to the body. So today we are going to talk about food majorly because that is what is in nutrition. And so before we talk about the food actually, we want to first look at how are we going to have these foods? How are we going to prepare these foods? And so today, majorly, we're going to talk about cooking the foods that we actually take in. So there are foods that need cooking, there are foods that don't need cooking, and there are foods that need little cooking or not overcooking. And so we're going to start with the foods that we don't actually cook. And I know we already have some in our heads, and one of them is fruit. Yeah, most of the fruits, if not all of them, they don't need cooking. And maybe the others are vegetables, maybe grains, maybe nuts, and some other foods that we know that do not need a lot of cooking. And so if we don't cook these foods, it makes us to be very careful because, well, cooking can kill some of the bacteria. But now, these foods are not cooked. So we have to be careful so that we do not get disease of the foods that we do not cook. And how are we supposed to be careful? One of them is to actually make sure that the foods that we do not cook are washed thoroughly. And when I mean thoroughly, I mean washing. Most of the times we rinse the foods that we eat when we have not cooked them. For example, if you are to take a mango, you don't have to climb the mango tree and then you eat from there. That's so very much unhealthy. So you have to take your mango and be patient a little bit and wash it until it is very clean so that you take in a clean food. And other fruits or other foods that are not cooked are some of the fruits that maybe we buy from supermarkets. And most of these fruits, maybe they have labels. And those labels, they are telling us some of the things that we are supposed to do. There are some labels that tell you that you have to first take some time before you eat the fruit. Or there are some labels that tell you have to eat them under these conditions. There are some labels that tell you have to first do this and that. And so if you buy a fruit from the supermarket and it has a label, you really want to be sure what that label means before you actually eat a fruit or a food or anything that will give impact negatively to your health. And so these labels are supposed to be taken care of. So now another way of making sure that you eat good and cooked food is maybe sterilizing them. You have to make sure that the food that you have not cooked is very well sterilized so that you burn or you kill all those germs that are around them. And maybe the best cheaper method of sterilizing is maybe if you boil water and then you just immerse your food or a vegetable or anything into that hot water so that the germs or the bacteria that are there are killed. And so there are other things that or other methods that you can use to sterilize, but majorly the point here is before you eat that uncooked food, be sure that you do not eat germs from them or that you do not eat that bacteria. You have to make sure it is very clean. And so that is about the uncooked food. Other uncooked foods that we can eat maybe is garlic, and well, that one you don't have to sterilize it. Anyway, so we also have half-cooked foods. Now, half-cooked foods are these foods that do not need a lot of cooking. For example, the vegetables. Well, even when you have to eat even when some vegetables are to be eaten uncooked, sorry, there are some vegetables that also need a little bit of cooking and not so much of cooking. Why? Because when you overcook these vegetables, they lose their nutrients, and that is not good. Because when you are to eat something, you have to make sure you have a reason as to why you're eating something. And so when you are eating this vegetable, and maybe you're sure, for example, if we talk about broccoli, which gives you vitamin C, you need to be sure, will I really get this vitamin C? Or if I do this, I will kill the vitamin C. And then you end up eating food and in the same position as someone who has not eaten it, or in a worse position. So you have to be sure that the vegetable that you're eating, if it has to be cooked, it needs a little bit of cooking. And the best way actually of cooking these vegetables is actually steaming them. It's the best way. They don't lose their color, they don't lose their nutrients, they don't lose their texture. And so when you're eating that vegetable, you're actually feeling very good. So you don't need to fry the vegetables, really. You are killing everything that the vegetable is supposed to give to you. And so the vegetables, most especially, are the ones that do not need a lot of cooking, that need a very simple or small cooking. And that's when it will be beneficial to your health. And lastly, cooking, the cooked foods. Well, cooking is a very big important thing in our lives. As much as we have seamstresses, as much as we have people who work on our hair, but the chefs, the cooks, the people that give us what to eat are the very most important people, because they deal with our bodies directly. If I have maybe a good or bad cloth, it doesn't have to do with my health a lot. But when I have eaten something, it has a lot to do with my health than the dress or than the hair or than the shoe. And so cooking has a very big important role that it plays in our lives. And I wish that we all knew how to cook. But anyways, cooking. When you're talking about cooking, before we actually tamper with cooking itself, we have to first look at which environment are we going to cook in. For example, you don't want to have a dustbin near your kitchen, and then every time you're going to cook, the flies are coming over here and then they are contaminating your food. It is actually not good. And apart from the environment that you're cooking from, you also need to be careful about the pans that you're using while you're cooking your food, because regardless, even if you clean your kitchen and everything is okay, but the pan that you're using to prepare your food is not good, then you will still get infected with disease. And so before you start cooking, you have to take care of, one, the environment that you're going to cook in, and two, the pans that you're going to cook in, and most importantly, the food that you are going to cook. Well, you can take care of the environment, and you have a clean environment, you have clean pans, you have clean utensils, you clean modern vessel, you have clean everything. But when your food that you're going to prepare is not clean, then everything is in vain that you have done. The cleanliness is in vain. As much as you have avoided the flies from coming to your food, but yet your food is not clean, and so you will still have to be contaminated. Some people argue, for example, if we have to use an example of tomatoes, that when I have gotten my tomatoes from the garden, maybe I don't need to overwash them, because after all, I am going to cook them, and then the bacteria or the germs will get killed because of high temperature. Well, I want to challenge you today that there are some chemicals that are actually activated with high temperature. And so if you get your tomato and you just cut it there and then you put it in your saucepan, and then that you put in a high temperature, you can actually be doing worse. You're activating maybe the chemicals, and they are causing more harm to the body than the bad that you actually thought about. And so before you prepare your food, before you start the cooking process, first clean wherever you're going to cook from, clean the utensils and everything that you're going to use in cooking, and clean the food that you're going to cook. And maybe you use clean things. For example, clean water. It's also important, because the water that you're going to use to clean is also important, because it is in contact with the food. And so you have to be clean generally. And the hands that are going to prepare your food, they are also supposed to be clean. For example, if your nails are not cut very well, and then there are some germs that are in your nails, and then you are touching here, you're touching there, you're touching here, so you find out that you're actually even contaminating the food that you're going to prepare, which will also injure your body. And so that is the part of the before cooking. So now we enter into the cooking itself, the very amazing thing. Now, we might not exhaust every cooking or everything that pertains cooking, but we shall just talk about a little good and most important ideas about cooking. We have very many ways or different methods of cooking. We have maybe boiling, we have simmering, we have smoking, we have grilling, we have baking, we have many things. And so before you choose which method of cooking you have to use, you have to put in mind of which food you are going to prepare. For example, like we talked about vegetables, we said the best method is steaming, which is very important. And so you wouldn't want to fry your vegetables like we said before. And even frying, if you have to talk about frying, many of the times we misuse frying. Well, I have to give you a simple advice. You should, as much as possible, avoid frying as much as possible. But in case you can't do about it, there are better options of frying. Most times, we encourage plant-based oil more than the animal-based oil because of different reasons that we cannot exhaust right now. But now, if you still have the good oil and you still misuse it, it will also be disturbing. And so the oil that you're supposed to use is actually plant-based oil, but even if it's plant-based oil, you don't want to reuse it. And the reason as to why you shouldn't reuse it is because of a lot of chemistry that goes around there, the free radicals here and there. So if you get interested, you can actually search that. But it's not good to reuse the oil that you have already used. And so frying is supposed to be, you are supposed to do the frying very carefully. The best way that I can advise to fry is actually you first cut your spices, your tomatoes, your onions and everything. Then if the liquid in those spices are not enough, you add just a little water in it, and then you put it on fire. It simmers a little bit, and just add a little oil. Most people use oil for the food to become palatable, but I can assure you that there are some better methods apart from frying that can make the food palatable. But just in case you can't do about it, you use that method, and then after the spices have simmered a little bit or they have actually gotten ready, you add a little oil and you leave it for some minutes, and then you continue with the process of frying. But the dangerous one is actually to heat the oil and then it first burns, and then you put in those onions and they give that shwa, that sound. Now that is very dangerous because of the oxidation of the free radicals and all that we are not going to talk about because we do not have enough time. And so you have to be really careful about cooking. Now, because of time, we cannot exhaust everything about nutrition, but we shall have more videos about nutrition and we shall discover which methods are we supposed to use, or which good foods are we supposed to eat, which foods are we not supposed to eat, and why. We shall have reasons as to why we discard some of the foods and why we accept some of the foods. We shall talk about indigestion and many other things. So please make sure if you have not subscribed, you subscribe. If you have not clicked the notification button, make sure you do that so that when the next video pops in, you will be assured of the video that will come in. So I pray that as we are having this series, we shall all get benefited. And remember, our bodies are a temple of God and they are not ours and they are His. So the reason as to why we are taking care of our bodies is because we want to be good stewards of the body that the Lord has given to us. How I pray that we shall all benefit in these videos, and I pray for God to bless you so much, and I am waiting for you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Join us as we unpack this free gift that God has given to us with no cost, with no dime, with no money, with no dollar, with no shilling, with nothing. Greetings, friend. My name is Nahabwe Talent, and I have two questions for you. One of which is, do you know that there are some of the things that you do that shorten your life? And do you know that there are some of the things that you do that prolong your life? Well, I have good news for you in case you didn't know. This series that we are going to start are going to fill us with the things that we are supposed to do so that we can have a very good life, a very healthful living, some of which have a lot to do with nutrition, others have a lot to do with our lifestyle, what we do, what we do not do, what we're supposed to do, what we are required of. Well, it's not only about that. We are going to learn a lot of things like a formula called New Start: nutrition, exercise, water, temperance, air, and all those things that you're going to be looking at. You can join us by subscribing, and you can still click that notification button so that when the video is premiered, you will be the first one to get to know of it. May God bless you. I hope that you will be blessed in this series that you're going to have, like I have benefited